Get a heart. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for coming. This is one of my best friends, Patrice. She's been with me through the ups and downs of a lot of my life, except when I never disclosed to her that my children had autism. A lot of us, I don't know, how many parents in here have a child with autism? 1, 2. Okay, it's gonna be an interesting conversation. You guys understand a little bit what I'm saying. I do have some slides. You got them? When I had my first 3 children, nothing was wrong. We hit every milestone. We were happy. We're growing as a family. And I couldn't be more happier as a father. My expectations were I'm gonna walk my 2 daughters across the aisle one day. They're gonna be prom queens. They're gonna get married and give me grandkids. They're gonna be so happy, so beautiful. I'm gonna be such a proud father. And my son, my 3rd child, he's gonna be a mini me. I'm gonna teach him how to do things that I can't do, like play ball. I can't play ball that good. I can't swim, but I was gonna push him to do all the things I couldn't do and make him this really good man, a good reflection of me that I could be proud of. He could be prom king, drive a car, just achieve all these dreams. And I was proud. And then my next children came out, my son. And I'm like, okay, Quintus. I have a Quentin Jr., then I have a Quintus. Quintus came, and I'm like, oh, he's gonna do even more than Quentin Jr. He's setting the bar. Quentin Jr. is gonna set the bar, Quintus is gonna break it. All these aspirations, all these expectations. And then Quinn came right behind Quintus. I like the cues, if you kind of noticed. And then I had those same expectations. We go through the 9 months, the kids are coming, they're progressing, milestone, they're lifting up their head, they're having eye contact, they're starting to speak, mama, dada, everything is going good. And then in the 2nd year, all of a sudden it started to regress. The eye contact stopped. My son started choking on stage 3 food. He was eating rice and chicken, and now he's choking on it. I looked at my wife and, when's the last time you heard Quintus say anything? It's been like a week. Quintus, what's going on? And then he's just quiet. We go to the doctor, and the doctor says, don't worry about it. It's nothing. And I'm like, it's something, but you're the doctor. I trust you. You've been here with all my kids. I'll come back in a few months. Come back in a few months? Don't worry. We see that a lot. Okay. But now I'm getting worried. My son is starting to have these tantrums. He's crying for no reason. I don't know what's wrong. I start to YouTube. Anybody use YouTube? Now we got TikTok. If I had TikTok, I would have really been in a much better position. YouTube started telling me that based on my son's symptoms, he might have autism. And this is other parents. And I'm like, my son doesn't have autism. That doesn't run in my family. How are those slides? You didn't get the slides?
All I have is the herbalist.
Hold on.
All I have is this one.
Interesting. This one. Yeah. Let you see what yeah. I want to give you guys a visual of what I'm talking about at the same time. Let me see. All right, that's me. Then the next one. Let's see. That's my family, if you can see. My eldest, 19, Bianca, 18, Quentin Jr., 15, Quintus, 8, Quinn, 7. I didn't put my wife's age because I didn't get that permission. So I just put the two, so you could just guess. However, next slide. I want to ask you guys here. Only 2 of you parents actually have children with autism, but any of you other parents, if you ever had a doctor or a friend or a cousin or any professional tell you that your child has autism, how would you feel at that moment? Anybody could step out.
What does that mean?
What does it mean? You question it. Okay. Well, it means lifelong cognitive delays, and he might never talk, be independent in any capacity. How would that make you feel? Give me a word that comes out. Not happy.
Scared.
Confused.
Scared.
Scared. Disappointed. Worried. Stressed.
I think many people feel guilty. They keep saying to themselves, what did I do wrong? And of course they did nothing wrong.
Guilty. Yes. Genes, they got geneticists, they can check. Anybody else on this side? Disbelief. Sad. Denial. All of these words are true. I definitely felt guilty. I thought about everything that I ate, everything that I consumed. I thought about what my wife ate. I was just like, did you drink while you were having baby? Like, were you around hookah? Were you around secondhand smoke? We first blamed ourselves because we did not want to accept that that was our reality. And then we were in denial that, you know what, he's going to wake up out of it. And we went through all these confusing times and suffered in silence and quiet desperation. Next slide. But then, after I would say 2 years and YouTube and seeing other families progressing, I had to make a choice. Do I stay in all of these feelings that you guys mentioned, or do I become a winner that I do not know what that looks like, but it's better than just being a victim? I took the side of being a winner, and that was an uphill battle. It's actually easier to be the victim because then you could just kind of suffer and just live that life. But I didn't want that for my kids. Being that I had 3 kids, I knew the possibilities. Next slide. So first, I went to the psychologist, and he told me that there's a possibility of autism based on the things we said. There's no blood test to tell for autism, but you can get all these different opinions because they help. The neurologist did an EEG on my son's brain, and he did an MRI to see if they had a tumor in their brain, just in case there was something delaying their cognitive abilities. Again, pass with flying colors. Then I went to a developmental pediatrician, just based on our conversation, said he's most likely on the spectrum. And then I went to a psychiatrist for the tantrums and saying, is there anything else that I'm not seeing? Is this a mental illness? No, but they see that there's some cognitive delays. And then PT, OT, and speech therapists. Physical therapy, occupational therapy, and speech therapy. So this was my daily schedule trying to combat autism. There's early intervention. However, my kids didn't get diagnosed until 4 and 5 years old, and I noticed this around 2 years old. I couldn't get a diagnosis. You could say the CDC states that the average white child gets diagnosed and treated at 1 year old, and the average black child gets diagnosed and treated at 4 and 5 years old. So it could have just been the doctor doing his job and just not telling me that my son could have autism, which delayed me from getting early intervention, Social Security, and a lot of things that could have helped me along the journey. And I ended up leaving that doctor because he also combated me when I brought up solutions that I found from online. Next slide. The alternative solutions or naturopathic doctors. These are doctors that they go to medical school, but they find natural solutions that you can use that have different results. So I met a doctor, Dr. Susan. She told me that your child might need to detox some of the toxins in him. She gave me some liquid versions of detox, probiotics, elderberry for his health. I started taking these things, hoping for the best, but they were natural, so I felt safe. Then a geneticist, because I wanted to make sure that this wasn't coming from us. It never happened to us. I wanted to make sure it wasn't in our genes, and if there was something else that we weren't looking at. There was nothing there, but I still went. Then gastrologists, the stomach people. My son started throwing up a lot. I didn't know what was going on, so I wanted to see if there was something happening in his gut health. John Hopkins did a study. Your gut health and your brain health connect in so many ways. If you really want to focus on your brain, you should take care of your gut. So I wanted to just start looking everywhere because I just wanted my sons back. Like I wasn't here to cure autism. I'm not here to say that there's a cure. I just wanted my sons to become independent because I do not want to take care of my kids when they get older. That's my vision. And then the behaviorists, because these licensed behaviorists, they can help with the potty training, they could help with the independence when it comes to dressing yourself, just like occupational, but they take it a few steps further. And the herbalists, can't forget my guy, the herbalist. Herbalists come up with herbal remedies that help you naturally build your immune system. The herbalist that I mentioned, that he's actually here today, he let me know about omega-3 as a really good vitamin that my kids could help their cognitive abilities. I don't want to say this happens for everybody, but when I started giving my kids omega-3, within a week I saw improvement in a lot of their focus, and my son said hi for like the first time that week. Thank you. He also put me on to lion's mane and a whole bunch of other things that my whole family, we all take these vitamins, not just Quintus and Quinn. Thanks. So this is my cure. This is I Am Dad. Consistency and a positive mindset. The world, when you look up autism, they show you the most severe person on the spectrum. And it scares all of us. They don't show you the positive actors, doctors, lawyers, successful, independent people living with autism as a superpower. So I had to look at it from that perspective, talk to people who wanted to listen to me. And now, I started to get my sons back. That's my son, I'm teaching him how to ride a bike. He's looking at the camera, that's Quintus. And that's just Quintus and Quinn. I'm just always grabbing them up because they don't know what we're going through. But I'm gonna tell them later. So while I was suffering with all of this and going through these things, I never shared my story. I wasn't as vulnerable, I wasn't as open, I was just trying to figure it out for myself. I started to share my story a little bit, and that's what opened up I Am Dad. Because there's a lot of families out here suffering consistently, and I don't blame them. I just blame that they don't know that there's other alternative solutions. So like I said, there's no cure for autism, but there's no reason we need to be on the lower side of the spectrum. It's not for everybody, but when somebody tells me that their son can't speak or you can't use the bathroom and you're like in your teens, I want to know what you missed. I want to know how I could have helped you sooner, because there's still options and there's still opportunities, but you need to start sooner. And that's why I started I Am Dad. So I Am Dad is I'm defeating autism daily, where I'm defeating the limitations, low expectations, and discrimination against anybody with that diagnosis. I've met too many success stories to see so many people not succeeding. The CDC says by 2030, 1 in every 2 children are going to be on the spectrum. So my grandkids are going to be on the spectrum, according to that statistic. Everyone here who has kids, your kids are going to be on the spectrum. Like, who's looking forward to that? But there are opportunities to see solutions now. So even if you suspect it yourself at 1, I would say you can start implementing strategies where they will not even detect autism by the time your child is 5. But it's going to take us parents making more people aware of all of these other things. Instead of just the medical doctor, you need to go down the list and find other support that you can find. There's a lot of opportunities out here in New York. We have OPWDD, Front Door, through Medicaid. It's not easy to get into, but they're a really good established city organization. But other than that, I would say I found a lot of power in parent organizations. You just Google parents with autism, and so many parents are fighting in different pockets, mostly moms. I'm not gonna front. I haven't found a dad one, so I decided to create it. But the moms are out there fighting in every borough, and I really love like the energy and the tools that I get from them. But one thing I didn't talk about was the dads. When I talk to dads, we suffer differently. Any dads in here? Few? There's something that we go through as a dad that was really breaking me, that I couldn't get through to my wife. And she never knew how much it hurt me, because I was just trying to provide, protect, and lead. but I was really crushed because I really took it, like I took the blow the hardest, but I never showed it. There's a reason why men, unfortunately, commit suicide at higher rates when they get older. We do not know what to do. We're just always trying to show up, be strong, work out, but we're suffering and we're hurting. So I decided to start another group, next, I'm Still Dad, where this is for fathers of special children, a safe place where your voice can be heard and not judged, where I provide with other therapists and other mentors and other fathers the support that we can have these conversations in a different way, because I almost looked at myself as not being the same type of dad because of my last children, but then that made me more of a dad. But now I need to help all these other fathers. So this is I'm Still Dad. Sorry, it's private, so you guys can't sneak in. But it's for dads. If you know any dads, let them know that they could come in, and all the barcodes are on this stuff. Now, I did a panel yesterday and I realized you guys might have questions. So I'd rather answer your questions directly and point you in certain directions based on what I know. And all of these things are not me. I point people in directions because I know it's confusing when you go to Google and YouTube. So what I did in my organization is just whatever I don't know, I'm going to give you to the person who does know. And I do have somebody here today, but if somebody has a question directly of something that I went over that you want to hear about, let me know and I'll give you an answer before I bring up our guest right now. Earlier I talked about an herbalist helping me get my son, his voice, get my son, his focus, his cognitive abilities, help my whole family. Today I want to just introduce you to this herbalist that I've met almost 8 years ago, Danny Parat, and he's the people herbalist, but he's gonna come and tell you who he is, what he does, and yeah, he's a father just like me. I'm gonna let you tell your story, just because he used to do home visits before he became Showtime.
Good afternoon, good afternoon, good afternoon. I'm happy to be here with you guys today. My name is Danny. I go by the People's Herbalist. I am a specialist in adaptogenic herbs. Has anyone heard of that word, adaptogens? One, adaptogens. Okay, so it's a class of herbs, and like the word, like the prefix, adapt, these herbs help our bodies adapt to our external stressors, emotional and physical. So there's not one specific action, it just brings balance to our bodies. And when I found out about plants that can bring harmony to our body, I felt that it was very important to focus there. So this organization, Quentin putting this together, representing fathers. Oh. Thank you. Representing fathers and our opinions and the health of our children. It doesn't get spoken about enough. In my experience and my opinion, I have done a lot of advocacy work. I have done a lot of research. I do case studies. I do classes in youth education. I have a lot of partners within the holistic side, whether it be bee farmers and foragers and mushroom experts. And then on the other side, I still work with medical professionals, primary care physicians, nurses, and doctors of osteopathic and chiropractic, everything in between. I feel like there was a need to bridge the gap between the holistic realms and the allopathic realms. You can go to the next slide. But yeah, defining autism differently. I think this is a really important thing for us to do as a community because, like Quentin had mentioned, the statistics of autism or the diagnosis of autism in America has skyrocketed over the last 30 years. And we're looking right now around 1 in 36 children are diagnosed at this point, more so people of color, people and boys that look like us. And it's a big problem. And coming, I know there were some questions about what is the cause. And being on many different stages and talking to different professionals in the field, some will say, you know, there's not one cause. There's just simply not one cause. You can't blame one thing. It is a collaborative combination of environmental factors, of medical care, of food, of even some things in regards to our exposure to electromagnetic frequencies, phones, Wi-Fi, television, Bluetooth. We are inundated with things that our bodies have never experienced before. So this is it's a many factors, but I'll go into that a little bit later. Okay, next slide. So yeah, my son, you can see right here, his name is Max. He was diagnosed with autism in 2022. He's 8 years old now. So going back to the early interventions, this was something where I was getting evaluations from different psychologists, and they was like, look, it's too early. It's too early for you to have a diagnosis put on him. We see this all the time. I had a daycare, actually. My wife and I were running a daycare, so we've seen a lot of children, many children, and we noticed that there was definitely something that was different. There was something off, and I'd only started to notice it personally after the MMR vaccine. I'm not going to go and say that this is the cause, but I'm going to definitely say this was the trigger for me to see something different. And yeah, this was many nights crying, not knowing what's going to happen. We're going to have to take care of this little boy for the rest of his life. We can't afford to die. We got to make sure that he's going to be all right. A lot of fear, a lot of uncertainty. Next slide. So that it drove me to be active in the community. There was an organization that I was a part of called Health Freedom for Humanity. I was one of the executive board members, and they were a gang, a clan of medical professionals and experts from all over the country putting together unity and community groups and coming together to make sure that people were not forced into doing things that medically they may not have wanted. And I thought that was a very noble cause. So I got involved with that, and using my nonprofit, Max Philanthropies, I did tons of case studies, and not just for individuals with disabilities or diagnosis of autism, but also people dealing with some of the most major and prevalent health issues within our society, from cardiovascular health to gut health to respiratory health. Especially given, you know, the pandemic that we had just gone through, respiratory health was, you know, an extreme need. So focusing there and using plants, and this was one of these revelations that came to me, because my traditional background was sociology and psychology, making sure that people are feeling good within their environments. That was it. You know, your emotional health is the stem, it's the core, it's the trunk of almost everything else that goes on with our body, because our nervous system regulates our heart, our brain and nervous system are totally connected, but it also has impacts on our gut as well. But yeah, I knew that these plants and the relationship to God, now this is a little outside of my scientific mind, but intuitively I knew that God made these plants. God had them here for a reason. We are not utilizing them anymore. We used to, but then modern medicine came about 100 years ago and then pretty much poo-pooed all of God's beautiful creations as pseudoscientific, as not effective, as not researched. And how do you have the nerve to discredit the Lord's work because of 100 years of your scientific method? And you're going to ignore the historical relevance. That really bothered me, and I knew that I had to take a stand and push this to our communities in a way that was not woohoo, but also it was very based in faith, but also based in science and based in reality. We can go to the next slide. So going over autism in itself, reviewing autism. Neurodivergency. Has anyone heard that term before? Neurodivergent? Okay, I think that, for me, that just feels better. You know, it just seems more appropriate because our brain, everybody's a little bit different, but there's some where the brain works in so many different incredible ways, visualizing things, processing things in ways that many people that don't have that type of diagnosis just wouldn't understand. And understanding those differences and paying attention to those differences is absolutely critical. So I dismiss the term autism because I hate the blanket statement. I hate the fact that they will put one diagnosis to describe people from so many different capabilities, so many different talents. You know, we have some, unfortunately, won't be able to take care of themselves ever. And then you'll have some that are so intelligent, they have the highest IQs the world has ever seen. So to take one diagnosis, one disease title, quote unquote, and lump everybody into there, I think it's irresponsible and it's not clear and it just brings more confusion. And it also, it minimizes some of the resources that can be afforded to everybody. So we go, so go back real quick, I'm sorry. I know that there was questions about the causes. So some of them, genetics has been thrown out there, possibility. Antibiotics, the use of antibiotics early and consistently definitely is a cause of disrupting the gut. And messing up your gut and your stomach and your intestines has a direct implication on your brain. So antibiotics is definitely, if not a cause, a trigger or contributing factor of some of these neurodivergencies. The artificial food ingredients, I mean, the foods that we have access to are extremely high in excitotoxins. These are just lab-made chemicals to make people addicted to the food, but also stimulate the brain in many different ways, almost like drugs, almost like heroin. So that definitely is one of those contributing factors to behavioral activities. Then obviously we got the toxic heavy metals, we have the pesticides, cleaning products is definitely one as well that people don't talk about a lot, but those fumes that are in the air, you breathing those in, they're having impacts on your brain and your body. So we have the EMFs, which was I mentioned earlier, like our bodies are electromagnets. You know, our nervous system has electricity running through it that also creates a magnetic field. This isn't really discussed within the medical sciences unless you're talking about diagnostic equipment. So your MRIs, that uses, you know, electromagnetic frequencies to understand the body, but we don't think about it that much. And I think that's unfortunate, and it's a point of emphasis for us to gather more information and more things that we can do to bring balance and harmony to our biofields. And then the increase in the vaccine schedule. What is that? Why? Next slide. So I'm sure everybody in here has had less vaccines than baby girl over there.
Baby boy.
I'm sorry, baby boy. I'm sorry. It's the head. I mean, that's what you know, you have a handsome young woman, you're not sure, right? My son has the same thing all the time. But the injections that have been given to the children now, my son was 2 years old. I followed the instructions. I listened to my parents. They said, oh, you had it, so everything was okay. But the reality is the sheer number of these injections have gone up astronomically. And there's no justification for it. Now, I've looked all over the place. Like, is there more cases of measles? Is there people in America have more sickness? What is the genesis of making people add more things to the schedule? So in 1962, it was 3 doses, 3 shots was expected for you until you were adults. At this point, we're at 72. 70, from 3 to 72. And I mean, you don't have to be a scientist. You don't have to be an expert. You don't have to be anything except for a person like, why is that? What is the cause for that? Why is that? And there really isn't any real explanation for it. And then there's a denial that this has any impact on the health of our children. And not just, the developmental disabilities, but also allergies, we have gut health issues, we have childhood cancers going off the roof. There's so many different parallels that go alongside the increase within this vaccine schedule. And then if you have the audacity or the nerve to even ask a question to your pediatrician, now you're anti-vaccine. Now you don't believe in science. Now you are a conspiracy theorist. Now you are somebody that needs to be thrown away in a box and shut up and never be heard from again. And that is very problematic. Asking questions does not make you a terrorist or anti-vaxxer or someone that wants to degrade the health of the nation. That's just not the facts. This is one of the things that always got under my skin, because I would ask these doctors, why, what is it that are making us have more of these shots? And then they would use third world statistics. And I'd say, well, in India and Zimbabwe, they're dying of measles. It's like, yeah, but what about America? Like, they're starving over there. So does that mean we need to eat more? Like, no. The things that are happening in other countries go with their infrastructure, their different scenarios. It doesn't apply to us. So you can't use third world or otherworldly statistics to justify things that get done here in America. So next slide. The Amish community. This was a really interesting thing that I heard that I wanted to look deeper into. Because anybody not familiar with the Amish? Everybody knows the Amish? Okay, so yeah, the Amish, they live pretty much off grid. They're not really exposed to all the things that we have within our modern society. And if our rates of autism are 1 in 36, their rates are 1 in 271. And I've seen, a lot of people will say that they don't vaccinate at all. That's not true. They do, but they're probably closer to our 1962 schedule, just like everything else. They're back in the past. They're not exposed to all the things that we have done in our modern day. So looking at that, what is it? Is it clean food? All right, they don't have EMF exposure. They're not really on the phones and Bluetooth and Wi-Fi. They have very minimal vaccination, if any. And they have true community, and they work hard and they work together. And there's a factor of us being together in unity and listening to each other and breaking bread. And obviously church is absolutely one of those key pillars for that. But not everybody has that. And that is something of emphasis that needs to be brought to the table when we're discussing, raising our children that have had damages or are impacted from environmental factors. Next. So supporting the nervous system and the gut as a family. This is really important as well, because I know the stresses of, raising a child that has a disability. That's very impactful on you as a parent. You have to recognize that as a leader of your family unit, you got to take care of yourself as well. And energy is just as infectious as any pathogen that they talk about in this world. So if you're highly stressed, that can impact your child. And you may not even see how it's impacting them, but it is. So bringing balance and finding harmony within yourself is absolutely crucial. And consuming different herbs. Some of them, Quinn had mentioned lion's mane is definitely one of the top herbs or mushrooms for nervous system health. I'll answer more questions to this, but there's lion's mane, there's reishi mushroom, there's ginkgo biloba is a really good one that I used. And then there was detoxification portions, which can be very useful, but also if done incorrectly can be a little bit harmful for your child. So there's like a thing called chelation, pulling out heavy metals from the body. Cilantro is actually a really simple way to pull out some heavy metals. I use cilantro with my son, and an extract of cilantro. But you can put it in food, salads or salad dressings, or chop it up and sprinkle it on some spaghetti in the sauce. There's many different ways you can get creative of having this in the body and your dietary habits. But it has some really, really remarkable benefits. Omega-3s, like Quentin had mentioned, supporting the brain that way is really important. You can get that in an extraction form. I had given him something called astaxanthin, which is a high red pigmented omega-3 that comes from krill. And using that supports the brain, and he had incredible benefits. And it doesn't work for everybody. It's not always a magic bullet for every single person, but having things that support your body and your brain is always going to be good. And you never know how many combinations of positive it takes in order to trigger that thing where, oh man, we've upgraded into the next plateau of ability. We've learned something new, something different. And it goes the same way of negatively stacking things. You know, you never know what is the breaking point. So that's it's an important thing. And blue light, EMF, like minimizing that, especially at night, is cool. Oh, please.
How effective is flaxseed as an omega-3?
Say it again.
How effective is flaxseed as an omega-3?
Flaxseed is definitely a really good one. That as an omega-3 is full of those brain supporting molecules, but also gut supporting molecules. So having flaxseed and putting that in a smoothie is a really simple thing that anybody could do. Thank you for that. Chia seeds as well. Seeds are some of the most underappreciated things that we could do for our body. Just think about what a seed is. It is the beginning of life. This is everything that a tree or a plant is going to need is coming from that seed. So when we ingest it, it has many benefits for us as well. So the diversification of the care that we give or that we receive, this is actually across the board from adults to children, special needs or not. Having multiple opinions and multiple approaches, what we include into our dietary habits, our exercise habits, our hydration habits, which is absolutely, I think, one of the most important things, because we drink more than we eat, right? Right? So if we can make every sip count, if we can sip on something that actually increases our immunity, increases our nervous system, that's going to be something that's really, it's like low-hanging fruit. You know, put a little bit of something in your water, have a juice that's incorporated into your life, drink some teas. Teas are they can be so beneficial in so many different ways, for sleep, for anxiousness, for immune system function, it's so many different things. But yeah, working with a physician that you trust. Not all doctors are created equal. I tell you, I shadow a primary care physician every week because I need to get my clinical hours for this Master Herbalist Guild to be accepted into this, right? So I'm in there, I'm listening to this doctor, I'm watching her and how she's interacting with patients and understanding some different diagnostics and different diseases. I'm like, yo, this is very interesting. I've never heard any doctor talk to a patient this way. And you will see doctors, they kind of brush their patients off. They look at them as numbers. Sometimes, you know, it's just their practice, they got to go through it. You know, their expertise, their time is very expensive. And, you know, they're trying to push you out the door. That's unfortunate, but it's key for you to try to find somebody that you resonate with, that agrees with you, that hears you. It's not just talking to you or at you. That's going to be an important factor for everybody's health, especially our children. The neurologist, and there was one thing that I definitely wanted to mention that I did for my son that had tremendous impacts outside of me giving him detoxification protocols and herbal supplements to support his brain. And there was a program called Sensory Stepping Stones where it was ran by a neurologist. Her name was Melissa. And this program, it incorporated a bed that he would lay on in a dark room. It had earphones that were playing certain frequencies, and then it had almost like a dentist light. You know those dentist lights that they put on you? It was one of those dentist lights hanging down, and he's laying on top of this bed, and it's going in circles. So there's movement this way. There's a light, real iridescent light coming in and out of different colors. So it was using color psychology, so magentas and pinks and blues and greens. And then the frequencies at the same time. And I had to do this 6 days in a row. And it was 2 sessions a day, very intensive. The first session, I didn't want to bring him back because he started crying and screaming, and it was like somebody was killing him. But I listened to the sounds, and it was just like Mozart. But the frequency in which the Mozart was being played into his ears was at a harmonizing tone that definitely started to switch things and shake things up inside of his brain. And to me, that was eye-opening to recognize that, look, this isn't a supplement. This isn't a plant. This isn't a juice. This isn't a medication. This is simple sound, movement, and light. And if we can have that, and what I saw, when I tell you, he didn't speak at all until after this program. There were no words. It was just pointing at things, and he said he might want water, like wow, but then he started to actually formulate words and sentences. And that to me was like, okay, this is special. This is something that we have to look into more and bring into the mainstream of people understanding what can we do for our children, you know, besides just taking to the doctor and hope for these different therapies and hope for these different, you know, early interventions. There are other things that we can use from sound, light, and specific movements to start to harmonize the left and right hemispheres of the brain. Yeah, no, so, thank you. If you have your phones, you can scan the QR code. My website is up there. I have a lot of different resources. Like I said, I do youth education. I have supplements. I can make customized protocols for people. I work one-on-one with people. I do case studies in which, you know, we sometimes will collect groups. So if you hop on my email list, I can send you more information about what our organization is doing, the different partners that we have, the different offers that we bring. And if you are interested and you need a herbalist, I'm your guy. And if it's not for me, I know somebody else that can help you. So yeah, I appreciate you guys' time. If you have anybody have any questions?
Thank you. By show of hands, who's ever heard of the word ableism? Who knows what ableism means? Okay, let's go with your first answer.
I believe it means discrimination towards people with disabilities.
Yes. And the only thing I want to add to that, thank you for that, is the discrimination against people with disabilities as being less than. So people have disabilities, but a lot of people just look at people and assume if you're in a wheelchair that, hey, you're disabled. But not really for people who are not in wheelchairs, who are disabled or have special disabilities in a different way that you can't see. So the reason why, what's next slide? Explaining ableism is because my mentality, the thing that wakes me up every day is my child is different, not less. But even if I know that my child is different, not less, does the world know my child is different and not less? Because when they see different, they think less. So I talk about ableism to awaken people to understand what ableism is and how it impacts everybody from schools, work, church. Just different organizations just don't know how people are being affected. However, since I'm not on the spectrum and I have a disability, the best thing I can do is bring people who are living with these disabilities so we can hear their story and understand them better on how they're affected by ableism, even if they're affected, how it shows up and how they live their lives. Before I bring up my first guest, I want her to get the proper introduction by Mrs. Francois herself.
So, is this better? Yeah, okay. So having or being autistic and having ADHD, that's how I choose to identify. Some people choose to be a person with autism. It affects every part of my life, so the ADHD makes it super fun because it also affects me on a biological and chemical level. Because as a biological female, all of my estrogen and progesterone also affects my cognitive abilities. So it just makes it makes me have to be more adaptable to myself, which is difficult, mostly because of the internalized egoism I have. We're working on that with therapy though, and exposure to trying to advocate for ourselves.
Thank you. What would you say are some common misconceptions about adults with autism?
Some super common, you were mentioning this earlier, are that all of us have high support needs. A lot of the statistics that are scary, rightfully so, but put up without additional context will say that 74 to 75% of adults who are autistic or living with autism are not gainfully employed or unemployed for the majority of their lives. And while that is true for the majority, it's not true for everyone, and that unfortunately does make it harder for autistic folks like me who look a certain way, can speak a certain way, have the ability to mask in a very effective and for long periods of time. If I didn't tell you that I was autistic, you might just think I was a little bit weird. Like, that's an odd bird. But you wouldn't necessarily think that I would need certain accommodations or that I would require the volume on our television to not go above 4. I'm sorry, honey, I love you. But those types of things are often disregarded for folks with low support needs. And I'm happy to give that if that means that folks with high support needs get closer to what they need to live as independently as possible. But it does make it so that I have to make a big deal out of getting certain accommodations at work. And so I don't pursue that as often for myself. So it affects pretty every aspect of my life. I'm also a parent. So I have to constantly be checking in that A, I'm not disregarding my own needs and then being not as great of a mom because I'm not showing up as my 100% self, because I can't, because I'm tired, or I am touched out, or I'm exhausted, right? And I can no longer be in social situations. And that's not so easy when you have a kid, so it's a constant checking in and then checking in with my support system. Mainly my partner who's here with me today, thank you. Dads, am I right? We love them. But it is, yeah, it's a constant checking in and then making sure that the things that were missed for me are not missed for my son, right? So there are things that I see, especially getting older and reading more about because the research is being done retrospectively now, we can see all the things that were missed with the kids in my generation and write about it and talk about it. So stuff that I did as a kid, playtime is where you see it, or I see it mostly. I would outline my Crayola coloring pages. I would outline the black outline with the black crayon because I needed to make sure it was outlined. Do you see kids doing this? Right. So I see my son just with the colors, just coloring things in. They don't have to match reality, but there's he knows what he's doing. He's not spending the time to do the additional outline. So just being mindful of that also, and not seeing stuff that's not there, and also not disregarding stuff that is there. It's a lot.
It is.
It's a lot.
It is, and I appreciate that because with my sons being on the spectrum, I look into people who are where they're going to be to know what challenges I can help them with before I get there. So I always tell parents, look at other people who are past the obstacles you are, so you can kind of learn about masking, about things that they go through, so my sons hopefully don't have to go through it so bad.
Hopefully not, because masking is necessary socially. There are a lot of social expectations for women in general, But if you are considered conventionally attractive, or if you are considered not conventionally attractive but exotic, right? We hate that terminology, but if you're looked at that way, there is an expectation of your behavior, and if you do not meet that expectation, or at least appear to be concerned with or care about that expectation, you get shunned socially, or you feel the impact of difference, the impact of not belonging. So I appreciate that you do that with your kids, because those little things may make it easier. Like, you looking into those things may make it easier for them to settle into their life versus always having to carve out the space for themselves.
Well, thank you. Well, last question. In what ways do you think society can be more supportive with your disability and inclusivity?
Well, I think first we have to listen to disabled folks, and we have to listen to the link in the chain that needs the most support, right? So you have to start with the folks who are not at the table. And I don't mean that here I feel like everyone that should be at the table is here. Maybe there's folks missing, but we can look at that. But many times when we start a conversation about inclusivity or about belonging or even about tolerance, we're starting at the people on the outside who are having to be tolerant or be accepting or begin to like bring people in so there can be belonging. And I think we need to reverse that and start on the inside of it, which is what you're doing here, and I appreciate that. But we have to start it with the folks with the highest support needs. What do they require in order to live as independently as possible, or as independently as they want to? My favorite example of this is the curb cutting example, or the curb cutting study, the curb cutting protocols that are implemented in cities, right? So in the 80s, all of our curbs were pretty high. You had to take a step up to get onto the curb, and it would cause a lot of folks to trip and then get hurt, and it costs the city money because you then have to pay if someone gets hurt because of your city or your infrastructure. It made it impossible for folks on wheelchairs to quickly cross the street because they would have to then leverage their weight backwards and push themselves up if they could do it, or they'd have to have a caregiver with them to do so. It makes it difficult for children to cross the street alone because their legs are shorter and they require a shorter step rise. It makes it difficult for pregnant women, for people with low vision, tons of people. Curbs are a detriment to them being able to move around the city or wherever it is that they live. So I think it was like a group of engineers, and I don't remember exactly when, they cut the curb, they cut a ramp into it essentially, and they found that it helped everyone in the city, and it helped the traffic patterns because people were able to cross the streets more efficiently and more effectively. So pregnant women were no longer tripping. They could push their stroller along the street and not have to like do that weird like lift up thing where your kid's head snaps forward. Sorry, David Roman. And it makes it just easier for everyone. The children can walk, elderly can walk, they can use their mobility aids without risk of falling outside, especially is super dangerous for our elderly people. And just that type of approach to accommodations, I think, is the way that should be the model that is, in my opinion, the way that we should proceed. It's like, what is best for the person who is affected by it most tends to be what's best for everyone.
Wow, good example. Thank you
Thanks.
for that.
You're welcome.
Stay right here. Our next person will be introduced. One and only.
Thank you so much, Adriana. Can we give her another round of applause, please? Now we like to mix things up. We have one lady, now we're going to have a man. So with that, Donald Jones. He is from the Bronx. He's a beacon of inspiration and empowerment. He has a master's degree in public policy and administration and combines academic powers with real-world experiences to drive positive change. He does have dyslexia, which means it's a learning disability which affects skills involved in reading, spelling, and writing. Here, let's hear it for Donald Jones.
Donald.
What's going on? What's going on?
Always appreciate you, brother.
Yes, yes, yes.
All right, Donald here also has a disability and can explain his experience and how ableism might have affected your lifestyle. And give us a, tell us about yourself.
Definitely. I was diagnosed being dyslexic at a very young age, and a lot of the things that I experienced with this disability, learning disability, is a lot of people don't believe in you, and it kind of like brings down your confidence level. So I'll give you a very short, synopsis of, pretty much how life has been. When I graduated out of high school, on a third grade reading and writing level. I could barely read or write. And I did the thing to me that I thought was more familiar for me and I was more comfortable, and that was me gravitating towards the streets. And one day when I was going to go do something that I wasn't supposed to do, I actually stopped at a red light and a New York City bus almost took off my side mirror. So I wanted to approach the bus driver. I tried to open up the door. The bus was so close that I couldn't open up the door. But there was a phone number to a college on the side of the bus. And I decided to call the number just to see, what happens, whether or not I could get into the college. And the first thing that the lady tells me on the phone is that I have to take an entry exam in order to get into the college. So I stopped her right there. I said, listen, let me tell you right now, I'm not coming in there. She's like, why? I'm like, because I'm dyslexic. I could barely read or write. She's like, Donald, come in. Let's see what happens. Take the test and let's see what happens. I went in the next day. I took the test and I failed. But the lady said that she was going to give me a chance where she was going to allow me to come into college. I can get credited for one of the classes that I'm going to take, and the other one is going to be a sociology class that's going to help you bring up your reading and writing level. On the first day of the sociology class, yes, thank you, appreciate it. The first day of the sociology class, the professor says that she wants a 5-page paper on why we decided to take sociology. I'm sitting here looking at this lady like, I don't think that I'm gonna be able to do that, but I tried. I went home. I took words out of Yahoo. Google wasn't really around. I guess I'm telling my age, but I took words out of Yahoo. I actually opened up a dictionary and took words out, and I put together this 5-page body of work that I thought was going to be amazing. And I gave it back to her the next day of class. About 2 weeks later, she's calling everybody up one by one to come get their paper, and she calls me up last. When she hands me my paper, she holds on to it, but she also turns the paper upside down so I can't see the grade on it, and she tells me she wants to speak to me after class. So I asked her, well, what do you want to speak to me about? She says, listen, wait until after class, we'll talk. I'm like, okay, no problem. As I'm walking back to my desk, I look at the paper, and it's a big red 0 on there with a sad face. So now I'm sitting here looking at this paper, and I'm looking at this professor, and I'm saying to myself, why did I even waste my time coming to college when I know I could barely read or write? And I tried to walk out of the classroom, and she yelled out in front of the classroom, Mr. Jones, sit down, I'll talk to you after class. Just like that. And everybody was looking at me the same way y'all looking at me now, and I felt a little embarrassed, and I sat back down. But this is the words that she said to me, and I didn't realize that it was going to change my life forever. When I walked up to her at the class to speak to her, to see what it was that she wanted to talk to me about, she looked me in my eyes and she said, Mr. Jones, if college is your plan A, you need to move on to your plan B, because I've been teaching for 28 years, and this is the worst paper that I've ever seen in my life. Just like that. And I remember when I was on my way home that day, I was sitting on the back of the bus and I'm trying to hold back tears because it just kept on replaying in my head what she just said to me. When I got home, my mother was in the kitchen cooking. I walked past my mother. I told my mother, Ma, I'm not going back to college. She's like, why? I'm like, Ma, I don't want to talk about it now. I'm not going back to college. And I went into the room and I locked the door. Locked the door for 2 reasons. One, because everything that lady just said to me just kept on going in my head, going in my head, and going in my head. And any vision for me to think that I was going to be anything was thrown out right in front of her when she told me the things that she told me. The second reason why I locked the door is because I realized that I kind of slightly raised my voice at my mother, and I knew she was probably going to come in that room, so I just wanted to make sure the door's locked. But here's the thing. I went to sleep that night. I honestly and truly don't remember the dream. But I know that when I woke up the next morning, I said I'm never going to give permission to anybody to make me feel the way that lady made me feel that day. And Quentin, you want to hear something funny? I went back to her and I asked her, can I do the paper over? And she told me that 0 that I got for the paper, she's not going to put a number in front of it or in the back of it. Whatever I got is what I'm going to keep. But if I wanted to, I could do the paper over. She'll take a look at it. So I wound up doing the paper over. I got a tutor. My mother got me a tutor. The school, I was calling friends up about 3 o'clock in the morning, asking them how to spell words, so they're not my friends anymore, of course. But I put together, once again, a 5-page body of work, and I gave it back to her. And when I gave it back to her, this is what she said to me. She said, don't come to me every single day asking what score is going to be on this paper. I'll give it back to you when I feel like it. Just like that. I said, okay. On the last day of class, she calls me back up to the front of the classroom again, and she hands me my paper face down. What y'all think I got this time? Somebody said 100? Who said 100? Because I'm about to give out $100 right now. Who said 100? Oh, I'm just playing. I didn't get 100, but I got a 30. That's right. That's right. And when I got the 30, I looked at the paper, I looked at her, I started to smile, and I gave her started to do a little dance. And she looked at me like, ew, why are you so happy with a 30? That's because she didn't understand that I looked at myself as a 0. When I was in high school, I used to tell the teachers, when I used to take a test, I used to tell them I'm a psychic. Don't even waste your time scoring. I already know what I got. That's a 0, because that's the way I felt. My confidence level was down. But what happened was, when I showed myself and I worked really, really hard to get that 30 that I wound up getting, it showed me that I had the capability and the power to design my life, and someone's opinion of me does not have to become my reality. So those are some of the things that I've been facing, since I've been diagnosed at a young age with dyslexia.
Powerful, Donald.
Thank you, brother.
I guess last, what do you think society can do to help people with dyslexia and inclusivity?
I think that with society, it's just more so just having an open mind. A lot of us sometimes will judge people or judge things or judge diagnosis, and we never did the research on it. And I think that if we slow down in this very, very, very busy life that we have, slow down just to take the time to really get to know somebody, get to know their capabilities, their abilities. How can they help you? How can they service you? How can you service them? But just you getting to take the time to slow down and get to know someone, I think that would be the best thing that you can possibly do. And also understand their diagnosis too. A diagnosis doesn't mean that you hear somebody's diagnosis and then you come up with the definition about, that's not what that is. It's you actually deep diving in it, finding out how you can support that person, and then being there to support them.
Powerful. Thank you, Donald.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Are you guys learning something? I'm definitely going to let you ask a question. I just want to bring up the next panelist. And after that, you can ask all the questions you like.
It's not a question.
Okay.
Hello, I'm
Sure.
Michelle Dunstan. I'm the district leader for 35 Market League. And I just want to thank you. Thank you all for coming and bringing this in our church. I'm a member of First Baptist, and thank you all for bringing the information to our community. But I have to go, and I'm so sorry that I didn't get to hear the whole thing, but I got the meat of it. And I appreciate you, and God bless you all.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So we have the last and final panelist. Her name is Mercy. I want to say you're learning some things, right? Oh my God, I'm glad you're learning some things that just new things. Some of these things I hope you all pass on to someone else outside of this room, okay? So we're going to bring up Mercy. She's a recently graduate with her bachelor's degree in clinical psychology from Hunters College. Yes. Currently, she is transitioning in a transitional moment in her life where she's learning new skills such as taking photos, speaking in public, modeling, volunteering, and writing poetry. This sounds like a superstar we have here. She does have something called PANDA, which she's going to explain to you, but it's a syndrome that involves sudden and often major change in personality, behavior, and movement in children following an infection involving strep throat. So give a round of applause for Mercy.
Mercy. All right. Well, now you kind of got a little heads up from Adriana and Donald. So So tell us about how Panda has affected your lifestyle.
Okay, so before I share how it has affected my life, I think I need to share kind of what it is because it's very uncommon and it's very rare. Not a lot of people know about it. I was diagnosed when I was 12 and it started with a strep infection. When I was here in New York City, I was actually diagnosed with anxiety and depression at 12 years old. And my mom, or at least myself, I wasn't okay with that because I didn't think it was what I had. So my mom took me to Dominican Republic where they realized that it wasn't depression or anxiety, it was PANDAS, which is a neuropsychiatric autoimmune disease. Neuropsychiatric autoimmune disease, yes. So what it is that I'm very nervous, as you can tell. So what it is a disease that starts with a strep infection, and then the strep infection kind of mimics a protein in my brain, and then my body starts attacking both the bacteria in my throat and then also my brain. So that leads to, because it's in the basal ganglia, I think I'm pronouncing it right, which is the part where we get to make decisions. It's related to emotions, phobias, and many other things. That leads to many symptoms like anxiety, depression, OCD, sensory overload, so many things, food aversions, on and on and on. So yes, that's that. So how it has affected my life. I think it has affected my life in so many ways. It affects my habits, it affects my behavior, it affects my learning style, it affects so many things. So I will share a story. So usually when I go to the supermarket, I touch every bottle until I find the one that feels right. It could be the same juice. It could be orange juice, but I'm like, no, that actually doesn't feel right. No, that actually doesn't feel right either. And people are like, okay. And then, I grab whichever feels right. And then for my habits, I have to be really mindful. So I have to listen to things that are certain tone, right? I have certain volume. I have to go to sleep at the same time every day because it's another symptom that I have is insomnia. So a lot of medicine wasn't working for me anymore. So I said, okay, I need to figure out other ways that I could help myself if I want to finish college. Because on my last year of college, I got really sick. And it was really hard for me to go to school every day when I wasn't sleeping, when I was having anxiety attacks, when I was having allergy attacks, throat infection, ear infection, my body was shutting down. So I said, okay, I need to build up a night routine. And I decided, okay, I'm gonna take a shower every time I go to sleep, and I'm gonna sleep around the same hour. I'm gonna take teas. I'm going to stop using my phone an hour before I go to sleep, and that helped. Does it always help? No, sometimes I can't sleep, but it has helped tremendously. So yeah, next question.
Wow, you're a survivor. You just went through a lot. And you got your bachelor's degree in clinical psychology. So you said you got a lot of support in DR.
Yes.
So you weren't able to get the support here?
No.
That's interesting. I've never heard that from somebody. What would you say that we need to do here to support other people that have PANDAS?
Oh, that's so many things. Because there is such a lack of research because people think that it's not real. Some people don't acknowledge the fact that there is a mind and body and spirit connection, right, that we have. So what I get from here is it's not real. You're just making excuses. How does that even make sense, you know? Like, and again, I have looked for specialists in United States and I haven't found one. Actually, the specialist that I found was in Europe. And the people that I found in Dominican Republic, they studied in Europe and they studied in many other places. And that's how they have information. So it's just a lack of research. And also when kids have, strep infection, we don't look at their behavior, you know? Like sometimes, and again, that's why it goes misdiagnosed, because we don't, sometimes parents, and I'm not gonna say every parent, but at least for me, because of how I was raised, they didn't pay much attention to me. So I've done everything myself, you know? Like my mom was like, oh, but then when it got to a point where I guess I just seemed so different that she said, okay, there must be something going on here, because she's talking back at me and she's not, like she doesn't talk back, she's not aggressive, but every time I ask her a question, she gets mad about it. So that's when she started to like actually look for other options. But a lot of the times parents don't realize, and sometimes when kids do certain things, their first instinct is to say, you're misbehaving, instead of saying, what if there's something wrong? What if I'm not meeting a need? What if, like, he's getting bullied at school? What if he, she, they are getting bullied at school? What is going on with my kid? So also again, more research, ask more questions from the parents, notice more, pay more attention, get to know your kid, as a human being, get to know them, and then you'll notice so many things. Yeah.
Thank you, Mercy. Thank you. Sorry. Thank you again, Patrice. And thank you, everyone, for taking the time out today on a Sunday. You could have been anywhere else, and you chose to be here to learn and have lunch with us. We appreciate you. To all our sponsors, and even my workout trainer, kind of see some veins popping out. He's even offered any of the panelists, if you guys are interested in training, for the month of May, he's offering 10 free lessons, virtual or in person training as well, just because he was so inspired by your stories. But thank you, everyone, for coming out, and follow, subscribe, and if you have any questions to anybody, feel free. But thanks again.